So when I take a look at the result sheet, I always like to look at the ranges first. You got under, average or ideal, over ranges, right? So wherever your graph ends, that's where you are. So for this person, they do fall into an overweight category as their graph falls into that over range. But don't care about weight. That's the whole idea of this test. I do care where muscle mass goes and ends up, and I do want it to be over this 100 marker. That little 100 marker there is indicating an average, and we always want to be average or above average in terms of muscle mass. It is the one good thing in life you can't get too much of. So just always be trying to gain it or maintain it. It's really important to always be maintaining our muscle mass. And then we look at here, we got body fat mass. This is the ideal range now. It is not average like for muscle. So when we look at that body fat dash range, that is going to indicate an ideal. So we can see they have 25.4 pounds of body fat mass, 95.9 pounds of skeletal muscle mass. Skeletal muscle mass being the one, the muscles we can influence with diet and exercise. That has nothing to do with our actual skeleton. It's like your biceps, your triceps, quads, glutes, hams, all those that we can influence with the diet and with exercise. So that's where we'll see the most movement. Moving down, we see body mass index. This is what I'm working against, so it's here to prove its inaccuracy. As you can see, this is telling this individual they're overweight. They should probably lose some weight, but meanwhile they're a 13.4% body fat and they're male, so that falls into the ideal range of 10 to 20%. The ideal range for females is 18 to 28%. Remember, it's ideal, it's not average or normal, okay? So you can be under the ideal, you can be over the ideal, still be healthy. What we really want to take a look at is this visceral fat area right over here when we're looking at fat. And visceral fat level is what's displayed on the InBody. It's between a 1 and a 20, right? So 10 being the middle, the baseline, we want to be 10 or under. The lower the better on visceral fat. It's that higher risk factor fat found within our organs. Moving down here, we got segmental lean analysis. We can see this person has 9.94 pounds of lean mass in their right arm. Lean mass includes anything without fat, so it's not just muscle. Could be water, it could be bone. We see they have 10.23 pounds in their left arm. That's not a major imbalance, but as we look at their legs, it's getting closer to half a pound difference, and that's typically when an injury or some type of favoritism's going on. You're really favoring one side. So if you have a half pound imbalance between either your right and left arm or leg, think about why that might be. Maybe you're just carrying your kid on one side all the time and it's building up muscle on that side. Sometimes it's an actual injury. Sometimes it's our body compensating for an injury we've just learned to live with. So like arthritis, arthritic knees, things like that can really affect our body composition. And we want these to be as balanced as possible so that we reduce risk for non-contact injury like a muscle cramp or a muscle pull. It's just little tiny things, back spasms, that can really just ruin our day and cause a lot of issues in our life. Down here, you see extracellular water to total body water. I think of this as inflammation. This person's a little bit on the lower side. It is not harmful to be less inflamed, but as we get up towards this 0.4 number, that's where we see edema. Edema being an unhealthy retention of water. So if you're above 0.4 and you have a chronic condition like a diabetes or congestive heart failure or even like cardiovascular disease, don't be alarmed. But if you don't and you're creeping up here towards 0.4, again, think about why that might be. We definitely become more inflamed as we age, but just take a peek as you progress here and make sure you're staying somewhat stable. If you see a significant jump up in your extracellular water to total body water, typically it's due to a medication or some type of illness or dehydration. Something's happened to the body, and if you don't know why, it would be a good time to check out with your doctor. Up here, we have a useless recommendation. Just don't pay any attention to it. Along with the segmental fat, don't pay any attention to it. I don't put any stock into either of those items, so barely go over them. Now, this basal metabolic rate number is a big deal. Basal metabolic rate is like how many calories, I would say this for lack of a better analogy, you burn in a coma for 24 hours. Basal is different from resting metabolic rate in that it assumes that you don't get out of bed. It assumes absolutely no movement throughout the day. So when you look at this number, without going to the gym on a normal day, you'll burn 200 to 300 more than this number, unless you sit in bed all day literally and don't move hardly at all. So add 200 to 300 to this number to get your resting metabolic rate. One rule of thumb, I'm not saying eat this number every day. One rule of thumb is to never go below this on purpose. From our experience here at Body Knowledge, when people go under this number on a consistent basis, it leads to muscle loss. And that is never anyone's goal. No one ever sets out on an exercise routine saying, hey, I'm gonna go lose muscle mass today. Like, no one sets out on a diet trying to lose muscle. We're all trying to lose this body fat number. So one key is don't go below your basal metabolic rate unless you're looking to lose muscle mass. Now, lastly, or last couple things here, visceral fat is the deeper, more dangerous fat. We already talked about it. 1 to 20 is that scale. 10 or below is where we want to be. And lastly, these are all just poundage values up here. They're not going to tell you a whole lot about is it good, is it bad? But one thing you can always check out is how many pounds of body water do you have? And is it over half of my weight? I always like to point out this number just to show how important body water is. Body water is left behind a lot of the time. We don't think about it. It's just something we've become accustomed to, and it's not marketed to us. So I always recommend it's an eye-opener. I mean, 120 pounds of body water is a lot. So always be replenishing water, drinking water as much as you can. Dry lean mass are things like it's anything without water and without fat. Bones, minerals in the blood, just straight up protein if we took all the water out of your muscles, things like that. And then body fat mass equates to your total weight. Lean mass total here is often associated with muscle. It's fat-free mass. So anything without fat is found here, includes bone, water, minerals in the blood, protein. So yeah, you can see they all get tallied up into your total weight.